you doing? So I am doing what I always do, digging deeper. So I can't remember what video it was, but it was the video. It was in one of the videos from this past week, and I said I was going to dig deeper into that. For those of you interested in did she or didn't she buy that book she was speaking of, the answer is no, I did not buy the book because I felt like it was a temptation, a test, and I said I will pass on it, and if the book finds me, then it is meant to be, but I am not going to seek that book out, just because the energy I sense from it before it is even in my hands. And I said to myself, I said, you know, that was the ignorance of Eve. She was tempted to know, and we don't need to know everything, okay? I'm not trying to know the knowledge, you know, of the tree of good and evil. I'm trying to know the knowledge of God, and I'm trying to know that not so that I can become a God, but because I love him and I want to help others love him and understand his creation, and through understanding his creation, ultimately understand as much as we can of him, because there's so much, you know, in God, around God, from God, you know. It's like there's no way that we can understand him completely, and that's why we will live with him forever and, you know, constantly, you know, find out new and exciting things. However, let's get back to why I'm doing this video. So in the story of Rokai, you know, we were given a name of a giant, and I went and I dug and looked into that giant, and there are many legends out there about how that giant actually followed the ways of God and would not allow the practices of the other giants and fallen angels to be done within his kingdom. So his kingdom was supposedly a safe haven for the children of Adam, and that giant and the children of Adam had a beautiful relationship, and the children of Adam taught him about God, and of course he shared what he had with them. Another character that came from that video was John ben Jann, who's known by many names, however, piqued my interest, and I wanted to look and dig more into him. And the reason why I wanted to look more into him is because he is attributed with being the founder of the pyramids in Egypt. And I was like, I thought Enoch was the builder of the pyramids in Egypt, but maybe it was a shared task, you know, kind of like the Temple of Solomon. And within these legends, I know that there is truth. So I am going to look, dig, find, you know, go over with a fine-tooth comb and eat the meat, leave the bones, right? All right, so basically, let's start here. Well, no, we'll start here. So Jann ben Jann is known as the ruler of Jinnistan, okay? He is basically the king of the jinns or the genies. However, in other places, he is not called a jinn or genie. He actually is called ruler of the world amongst the pre-Adamites. So I'm wondering if there is a correlation between the pre-Selenites and his people, if you can call them people. All right, so I'm just going to read certain things that I found, and of course other things that I found will not be revealed. All right, so basically it says, you know, Jann ben Jann, or Jann, son of Jann, all right, is the last of the 72 jinn of Solomon, and he's the ruler of Jinnistan with command over all his kind. All right, here in a different place it says that he is the king of the jinns, or genies, and he is the founder of the pyramids, and that he was overthrown by Azazel, or Lucifer. Okay. And then in a book that I found that is no longer in print, there is just like 2 sentences about him, and it says, an Arab tradition states that Jann ben Jann, the distinguished pre-Adamite monarch of the world, reared it. And basically it's talking about how he built the pyramid. And it says, when men looked up at this stupendous building, so dwarfing the structures of their own, it was quite natural that they should attribute its origins to the giants that lived before the flood. Okay, intellectual giants of that remote period. But within the same book, it talks about Seth, and how Seth and the Sethites, you know, like the children of Seth, basically built the pyramid. It talks about Sored, which Sored is known as Enoch. And it's basically just a book about Giza and about the legends and about the knowledge and different things like that, but it is no longer in print. But I found it interesting that it included Jann ben Jann, right? Or Jann ben Jann. And he has many different spellings of his name. All right, so here is something a little bit more in depth, and I love this kind of stuff when I find it. So it says Jann is Arabic, and Jann is plural. Jinn is Arab, or Jann is Arabic as well. Jawan is Arabic as well. And they are the ancestors of the jinn in Islam. They are said to have inhabited the earth before Adam, ruled by a king called Jann, something Jann, okay? In folklore, however, many consider them to be punished and turned into the weakest class of jinn, comparable to the way in which apes are seen as transformed humans. The father of the jinn is also called Abu al-Jinn. Jann, the Semitic root jinn, is an Arabic term whose primary meaning is to hide, and can also refer to an agile snake. It is a neuter signal for jinn, while genie and jinnaya are either adjectives or masculine and feminine singulars, or both. The term designate blah, blah, blah. A supernatural creature or a serpent. I'm just like, you know what? This is too freaking wordy, okay? Golly. You know, we don't need all the freaking words all the time. Then it gives a name, Lisan al-Arab by something Mansour, gives the following account on the term. Creatures called Jann lived on earth, but they caused mischief in it and shed blood. So God sent his angels who drove them away from the earth. And it is said that these angels became the inhabitants of the earth after the Jann. Amara el-Zin reports that the term Jann is used to specify when the term jinn covers both angels and jinn in meaning. Okay? So, in the Quran, Surah 15:27, it says that the jinn is created from fire and taken to be an ancestor of all jinn. So it goes into, you know, further traditions and different things like that from, you know, the Quran and Middle Eastern teachings that are too wordy for me right now. So I'll say this. It says that this is related to the staff of Moses while turning into the serpent. So another book describes Al-Jann as being created out of a mixture of fire. Contrast it with the angels created from light and humans created from clay mud. Another hadith mentioned in places, it says that Muhammad sought refuge in God from Al-Jann, the father of the jinn. So the pre-Adamite era, so they are like angels, and they were complaining about the creation of Adam, and they were witnessing the corruption of the Al-Jinn. The previous ruler of the world explains that after God created the world, he created Al-Jann from smokeless fire. Then there's an Arabic word that I'm not too ambitious right now to try to pronounce. His descendants multiplied and shed blood. Thereupon God sent the angels from heaven under the command of Azazel to defeat the jinn and drive them to the far islands. So the world used to be ruled by Jann bin Jann, son of Jinn. 2,000 years before Adam was created. They were similar to humans in many ways and in many legends. God sent prophets to them, just as prophets were sent to humans. Jann bin Jann offended the heavens, whereupon God sent Al-Harith with an army of angels to chase him. I don't know. But Jann bin Jann refused to submit to the angels, and war ensued. And the end of Jann bin Jann, he was overthrown by Al-Harith and the angels, who reigned the world onwards instead. In another account, the pre-Adamite jinn are all referred to as Jann. they would have battled angelic Jann under the command of Savati, but were driven away from the surface of the earth. Many Arabic legends refer or regard the pyramids of Giza as the remains of the works done under the rule of Jann ben Jann. That's really interesting because I thought that the pyramids were built by Enoch. That makes the most sense. But I would like to get my hands on some of this stuff and really look into, okay, well, who are the Jann ben Jann and how did they build the pyramids? Where it has to be written somewhere. Somewhere it has to be written. And then it says, to look into the Dev and Tannin. And I know that Tannin, correlates to dinosaur, and Dev, well, Dev is, the race of giants. So I'm wondering if these are just legends of truths, but they call them certain things, but in reality, they are known as, other things. But to see the word pre-Adamite and ruling, and then they give like a time span, like 2,000 years before Adam was created. Okay, so are we talking about, the pre-Adamites in Genesis? How he created them male and female? Is that what we're talking about here? And could I believe that they built the Pyramid of Giza? I need more, But I find it very interesting that, in several different places, there's several different, beings or people, attributed with building that pyramid, which basically tells us what? Nobody knows. No, I'm joking. I think that that's done on purpose to confuse and lead astray. But I'm not done. I'm going to look into this fella and find everything I can on him. Reveal yourself. Maybe I don't want him to reveal himself, right? I don't know. But king, king of the world before 2,000 years before Adam came on the scene. But your butt wasn't allowed in the garden. You weren't allowed in the garden. And then, it's curious that, Lucifer was given a leadership position, because I know that he was, I call him the covering cherub. So it would make sense that God would send him, to fight this battle, and then that he would win because he was victorious, in a lot of battles. What else did I want to cover on here really fast? It was something I was thinking about. Oh, yes. So before, I was thinking about Enoch and Elijah, and how if the church is still around, the church as we know it today, they will probably, what do I mean still around? I mean still around when Enoch and Elijah return, because they haven't died. They were taken. All right? The church, as it is today, will probably try to burn them at the stake or harm them. And it says that people will try to harm them. But it says that God will give them power to have fire come out of their mouth to basically burn up their opposition, and that they're also going to have power over the rain. They'll be able to stop it. And then I had this thought, and I said, Enoch lived in a time where there was no rain. He knew that the rain was coming, but I don't think he himself has ever experienced rain. So for him to be able to stop the rain, it's not going to be something odd to him, because when he was on earth before, there was no rain. Okay. Also, it says that they will be able to strike the earth with plagues at will, and they will be able to do it limitlessly. So, however often they want, whenever they want, however they see fit, they will be able to do that. But I was just thinking to myself, because of an experience I had today, many people will judge you out of fear. But, don't let that stop you from being you. Don't let that stop you from operating in the priesthood, because, those who aren't priests, well, how are they supposed to understand what a priestess, does? Those that are not seers, of course they're not going to understand, and when Enoch and Elijah do experience death, it says that people will be so happy that they will exchange gifts. But do they not know that those are two of the most awesome servants of God? But it's like we're in an age where people don't recognize it, or they're so legalistic in thinking that they cannot see the gifts of the Holy Spirit. They even said that Jesus was of the devil, and then Jesus was like, well, a house that is separated cannot stand. So if I'm of the devil, but I am casting the devil out, and it was almost like I just heard like a whisper, not a satanic whisper, but like a comforting whisper that just was like, my people die from the lack of knowledge. And I was even looking into, what does the Bible call necromancy? What is it exactly? And do you know that the word in the Bible that's used for necromancy, it's basically talking about a bottle, or like a bottle made out of skin. And it was a method used to conjure. Also, reading of the liver, that's the things that they were doing. Or they would read the blood, from the sacrifice of the animals. Or they would, look at a flock of birds, and how they flew. So a lot of people are ignorant to what is actually what, And I'm sure there are many things that I am still ignorant on. I know there are, and I'm okay with that. I'm not talking down. I'm just saying, like, I had a thought, like if Enoch and Elijah were to return right now, very few would recognize them as godly. And I just thought, how sad is that going to be? How sad is that going to be? But I had another experience after that one, and, ran into this cool chick, and, she knew what my ring was, and she knew, that Metatron was Enoch, and just interesting how the day went, It's like, oh, okay, well, I was just in a place where I felt judged, or, like kind of misunderstood, and then, didn't let it get to me and kept going, and, turn around, I'm in a place where, a person is like, oh my goodness, like, you got Metatron symbol on your ring, and I said to her, I was like, it's my family crest, that's my ancestor. But I need to get more comfortable in the truth of who I am, and that's the truth, okay? And then there was something else I was going to say to you. Oh, yes! I came across... My doggie is growling, and she scared me. I came across the book of Melchizedek, and I want to read it to you guys, but I'm not going to do it right now. But, it's very cool because within that book it talks about the city of Enoch being taken up into the clouds. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is just confirmation. This is more confirmation. Because when I say things like that, like people look at me like I'm freaking crazy, I'm like, Enoch had a city. He was the king of the city, and it wasn't just him that got, taken up. And, he lives on Arcturus, and the Arcturians are God's people from before the flood they lived in the city of Enoch, Anyways, this is not a ramble. I don't really know what this is. Probably more just a documentation with a little bit of rambling. All right, so I'll see y'all later. Peace out. Or maybe I should say Reese's Pieces.